The Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka is largely an opinion talk show. All opinions, comments, or statements of fact expressed by Gwilda Wiyaka's guests are strictly their own and are not to be construed as those of the Science of Magic or endorsed in any manner by Gwilda Wiyaka, rel-mar McConnell Media Company, its affiliated networks, stations, or employees. Welcome to the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, a program dedicated to uncovering the unified nature of reality and humanity's ever-evolving place as truly galactic beings. For more information on the Science of Magic with Gwilda Wiyaka, visit us online at www.thescienceofmagic.net.
Welcome to the Science of Magic, a place where science and magic come together to transform fact into evolving truth. We're coming to you through the leader in responsible paranormal programming, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net, and can also be found on our website, thescienceofmagic.net. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. This hour we'll be exploring the secret chamber. You ask me questions with your head when the answers are in your heart, my Lakota teacher stated, in a rare display of exasperation after enduring yet another barrage of my endless queries. Instead of answering my questions, he proceeded to instruct me in an ancient shamanic technique that changed my life. He taught me to access the secret chamber in my heart. My teacher was convinced that any culture living predominantly from the head would soon implode upon itself. When I asked why, he said the only path to balanced truth of any matter was through the heart. The mind, in and of itself, was linear, cold, calculating, and self-serving, unable to consider the well-being of the whole, and thus unfit to guide alone. Since that remarkable day, I've approached everything differently. When I have a question, I journey into my heart and ask my question from there before seeking someone else out for answers. That's not to say the mind doesn't have an important part to play, as does the imagination. The ancient practice of shamanism engages heart, imagination, and mind in equal measure to find balance, healing, and truth. By seeking an answer with the heart rather than agenda, we can access the quantum level through shamanic technique. As the linear mind can't translate unified quantum level information, our imagination generates a metaphoric representation of the data that can then be translated and interpreted by the mind. In this way, viable solutions to seemingly unanswerable dilemmas can be found that best serve all concerned. These are the very answers that have the power to unify and transform our world. Yet this process of heart-connected living must begin in the individual. Since that fateful day over 40 years ago, I've endeavored to live a heart-centered life with varying degrees of success and no little heartbreak. I find I'm often misunderstood by those closest to me, as I remain silent when they're stating their viewpoint, voicing a complaint, or trying to find understanding in our relationship. Very often I'm asked, "Are you still there? What are you thinking? Don't you have anything to say? Throw me a bone here." The unspoken answers, "I'm right here with you. I'm not thinking but listening with my heart. My words would only get in our way, and bones tend to be bones of contention. I have no dispute with you." I leave the questions unanswered. As well I remember being unable to hear my old teacher with my mind as he spoke from his heart. Once again, science and magic come together in the magical, mystical function of the human heart. In this episode, focusing on esoteric foundation of the heart, we'll explore the intelligence of the heart, intuitive guidance found therein, and its role in global coherence. Our guest this hour, Howard Martin, is one of the original leaders who helped Doc Childer found HeartMath. He's been with the organization since its inception, serving as a key spokesperson and executive. With Doc Childer, Howard co-authored the HeartMath Solution, considered to be a classic, and definitive work on the intelligence of the heart. Howard is also a contributing author to the new book, Heart Intelligence, connecting with the intuitive guidance of the heart. Mr. Martin played a key role in launching the Global Coherence Initiative, a science-based co-creative project to unite people in heart-focused care and intention to facilitate the shift in global consciousness from instability and discord to balance, cooperation, and enduring peace. After this commercial break, I'll introduce Howard, and together we'll delve into the intuitive guidance, heart intelligence, global coherence. It should be magical, so don't go away. You're listening to The Science of Magic. Prior innovative episodes can always be found on our website, thescienceofmagic.net. Current episodes are aired daily on the X Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net. The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State certified occupational school training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, dedicated to unification and evolution of consciousness. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is the co-author of The Heart Math Solution, a contributing author to Heart Intelligence, Connecting with the Intuitive Guidance of the Heart, and one of the original leaders in founding of Heart Math, Howard Martin. His website, heartmath.com. Howard, thank you so much for joining us on The Science of Magic.
Gwilda, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate that very much, and looking forward to our conversation. And I want to, up front, thank everybody who's listening, wherever you are around the world, for your time and your attention.
Howard, what exactly is Heart Math?
Heart Math is a system, Gwilda, of tools, techniques, and technology, all underpinned with scientific research that we designed many years ago to help empower people through these changing times. It's a very heart-centric approach, but one that we've cast in a very modern and a practical context. So Heart Math is a system. It's the name of our organizations, obviously, Heart Math Inc., which is the for-profit company, and the Heart Math Institute, which is our nonprofit research organization. So all that put together is quite a large endeavor to do what we can to create a more heart-connected and heart-centric world.
Why do you think times are changing so fast right now? What's going on?
We're in a dimensional shift in consciousness, actually. I mean, the very fabric of where we draw from to create reality is morphing and changing. I think it's probably the largest shift in consciousness we've seen since there have been people on the planet. It's happening very quickly. We are moving from a baseline of third-dimensional consciousness, which is not bad. I mean, none of them are, but it's ruled by duality, good, bad, right, and wrong, ambition, survival. Those kind of characteristics are part of the third-dimensional consciousness. We're moving into the fourth-dimensional consciousness, which is certainly more holistic in orientation, more caring, more considerate, more compassionate. But not only that, Gwilda, we're moving from not just the third dimension as a baseline, but we're moving into the upper ranges of the fourth dimension. So these dimensional shifts are really dynamic. They create a lot of chaos and confusion. Certainly all of us are going through our own personal transformation and the challenges associated with that. And we can also see the outpicturing of so much change happening in such a short amount of time as we look across the global landscape. But in the midst of that, we're growing and changing and learning and adapting and evolving really faster than ever before as well. So, I know a lot of speakers talk about this today. It's kind of about choice, isn't it? About which side of that equation do we find ourselves on? The one where we're spiraling down into chaos and confusion, or the one where we're obviously accelerating in growth and changing in dynamic and wonderful ways?
Yeah, there's a whole lot of shaking going on out there.
You're right about that. Well said, my dear.
People usually think of intelligence coming from the brain and emotion from the heart, and yet you're referring to heart intelligence. Could you explain that for us?
Yeah, it's characteristics we have inside of ourselves. It's not about heart and brain so much. It's, intelligence is integrated throughout our entire system in many different ways. And when we think about heart intelligence, it's the kind of intelligence we have that's really high speed. It is definitely intuitive in nature. It's the type of intelligence that allows us to move beyond our own limitations and to do things that we often don't think we can. It's also the intelligence that gives birth to the feelings and emotional qualities that we revere the most, like really practical applications of things like appreciation and care, compassion, patience, kindness, forgiveness. All those wonderful qualities are birthed from the heart's intelligence. It's also that place we go to inside when we look for answers. In your introduction, as you described your story with your teacher, you talked about, asking your heart for answers. And I think that's a wonderful practice to have. But we look inside deeper often when there are challenges. And what we're looking for is the intelligence of the heart. I guess one way I can sum it up through my own experience of having been on this exploration of my heart for now over 40 years is that what I've learned is it's my own best friend. It's the most reliable guy that I really have to help me make decisions about things, whether they be big things or small things. It's my heart that I look to for that, but not in a mushy, sentimental way. It's looking for that dynamic intelligence, that powerful, intuitive intelligence that supports me in leading me through life in ways that are going to produce the most fulfillment and the most ability to contribute to the whole.
So you speak of the heart as being a very high-speed intelligence. Why is that?
Well, I think that, everything is speeding up. If you think about it, consciousness is certainly speeding up. The vibratory rate in the mind and emotions is getting faster and faster. Externally, we've been choosing for things to speed up. If you look at the last 150 years, we've been creating and designing our lives to be faster, whether that's through faster transportation or faster communication, lots of different ways in which we've been making things faster. So I think that it's interesting when I think about it, is the external technology, et cetera, creating the feeling of speed, or is it the internal that's creating that and also creating the external technologies? I think it's an internal process. So again, the vibratory rate's getting quicker, faster. The intelligence of the heart is allowing us to match the speed of change. In other words, there's so much coming at us these days. We're not going to figure things out the same old way. The normal, logical, linear processes, which are very useful and still essential, that have gotten us where we are today are not necessarily meeting the challenges that we face today. So the intelligence we need has to cut through more, has to cut right straight to a knowingness rather than through all the stepping stone processes that we often have to go through to reach an answer. And I think it's just part of matching, again, that speed of change, that acceleration in dimensional consciousness that is so prevalent in everything on the planet today.
So if the brain is linear, which we, that kind of intelligence, like you said, is fairly linear, is the heart more unified or circular in its processing?
I think so. I think you could see it that way. That's sort of a visual image of a geometrical image. But certainly what I would say about it is that, first of all, I don't necessarily see heart and brain in conflict. We're an integrated system in our intelligence. One way I like to look at it sometimes is different bandwidths in radio. We have AM radio, we have FM radio. If I'm listening to radio in my car, for example, I would have on AM radio if I want to know the traffic, the weather, and the sports scores. If I'm looking for interesting music or a talk show about some social issues that I find fascinating, very often it would be an FM station. So I look at it as different types of information that we need, and we need all of that information and all of that intelligence to form wholeness opinions about things and to navigate life. So heart is that way. It gives us a different type of intelligence than just figuring things out logically.
So, how much does unprocessed emotion and backed up rage and that sort of thing get between us and being able to use the heart's intelligence?
Well, it is the block. I'm glad you brought that up. I mean, we have a lot of emotion swirling through us all the time. Emotion is like a river running underneath perception. Most of the emotions that we're feeling are going unnoticed. And I'm not talking in this context about subconscious emotions. It's a term that I use called the subtly conscious emotions. I mean, there's always something going on in there, right? And it's like we usually don't slow down enough to look at it or see it, but we can be having, an inner grumble about something, or we can have this, long-standing history with a coworker that's coloring our perception of them, and we just don't even pay attention to those things. And just attitudes about life or down slant projections about the future. All this can be running in our system, and right there to be seen if we slowed down and looked at it, but we don't. And so that's blocking off access to our intuitive intelligence. It's really robbing us of the quality of life, and it actually filters down and affects our physiology. It's bad for our health. So dealing with our emotions, learning to sort of cut through on those as well and find quicker resolutions to the emotional reactions we have is an important skill set in these times. And it's also, interestingly enough, an aspect of heart. It's part of the new intelligence package that we have access to now that gives us the ability to do that. We don't have to process these emotions for as long, and we can get down to some of the things that have been in our consciousness for a long time and resolve them more quickly. It's not an overnight process. It's not always easy, but it's certainly easier than it ever has been. And it's one of the most important skills that we need to have today to live and thrive in these times.
There's a Native American prophecy about when the eagle of the north and the condor of the south fly together. And people have tried to interpret that as far as what's going on with the nations. But one of my teachers told me it had to do with when the north, which would be the mind, and the south, which would be the heart, fly together, then there can be unity. Is this what you're talking about, is bringing the two together and having them co-create, if you will?
Absolutely. They're best friends. There's really no separating them in a sense. I mean, here's the way I look at it sometimes. The heart is not only sending information. We know that through our science today. It's sending a lot of information to the brain and the rest of the body. Now, I believe it's also receiving information. It's like tuning into a bandwidth of the radio stations in consciousness that brings in new information. That information is transmitted at super high speed, at the speed of consciousness, to the brain where we perceive it, where we have the thoughts, where we have the visual images, and all of that happens in the brain. And that's one of the reasons the brain is, for so long, has been getting credit for the only intelligence that we have. But the brain's an interpreter. But when brain and heart are in sync, when they're in a coherent alignment with one another, that's when we are at our very best. That's when we're the best human beings we can be. We're intelligent. We are aware. We are connected to our own dignity, our own nobility, to the best aspects of who we are as human beings. We're more connected to our real self, not just the self that we project to be or the one that we think we need to be for others. All those happen when heart and brain get synced up, and that's what we teach in the Heart Math System. That's what our technology measures. All that is designed to really create this wonderful and magical, to use your term, alignment between heart and mind so that we are the best humans we can possibly be.
We have in Western medicine, very mechanized view of the body and the functioning of it, like the heart is a pump. Do you think we misunderstand the function of both the heart and the brain?
I'm sure that there's plenty more to learn. We certainly have learned a lot more about heart. One of the things Heart Math is most famous for is the scientific research, and it's also one of the things that's given us a bit of differentiation in the market out there because we have so much science to support what we do. We were never trying to take science and use it to take the heart out of heart. We just felt that heart needed a more grounded understanding for it to be practical, for it to be accepted. So science was our bridge between the wonderful philosophical tenets of heart and the practical daily livingness of heart. And science was that connector that we put in place there. So what we've learned about heart over the years is definitely not what we thought. It's more than a blood pump. It's actually a very important information processing center in the body, sending information to the brain and throughout the entire system, and this information is actually critical at the biological level to how our bodies function. And this was new discoveries. Now, what's interesting about it is that pieces of that story were scattered throughout the research literature all over the place, but nobody put the story together. Nobody connected the dots. That's what our scientists did. They connected the dots, and so now we were able to put a story into the world that recast heart at a biological level very differently And then that supported some of the beliefs that we had about heart all along. It legitimized some of the feelings that we had inside of ourselves. And that opened up a whole new world of heart and heart understanding for millions of people around the world.
I think it is so important at this time that we bring, science and magic or the esoteric together, because they're both studying the same thing. And if we bring them together, we have much more agreement and validation. So we're going to have to take a break here. Howard and I will return to our discussion on the other side of this commercial break. We're coming to you through the X-Zone Broadcast Network. You don't want to miss the other fine shows and hosts on xzbn.net. You're listening to The Science of Magic, thescienceofmagic.net. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. I'd love to hear you get your emails. Email me at info@thescienceofmagic.net with any comments or suggestions. There's more heart magic to come, so don't you dare go away. Hi, I'm Gwilda Wiyaka. Did you know that shamanism has been around for 50,000 years and practiced by all indigenous cultures? These ancients understood there's more to healing and health than just the physical. All 4 levels, physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual, must be addressed in order for us to enjoy healthy, abundant lives. To find quality shamanic healing you can trust, you need look no further than Path Home Long-Distance Shamanic Healing Program. All Path Home practitioners have been trained and certified through Path Home Shamanic Art School, a Colorado State occupational school, and are handpicked, personally trained by me, Gwilda Wiyaka, to uphold the excellence of Path Home's long-distance program. Live abundantly. Schedule a shamanic session with me or one of my quality practitioners today. Call 303-775-3431 or visit findyourpathhome.com. Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, a place where magic and science come together to promote enlightenment. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka. Our guest this hour is the co-author of Heart Math Solution and a contributing author to Heart Intelligence, Connecting with the Intuitive Guidance of the Heart. He's also one of the original leaders in the founding of Heart Math, Howard Martin. Howard, we were talking about some different functionings of the heart, and one of the things that's been fascinating me, I wondered if you could enlighten me on, is the heart puts out an electromagnetic field, kind of in the form of a torus, and that electromagnetic field kind of surrounds the whole body. Is that a form of connectivity between it and the rest of the world?
Yeah, well, it sure is. You know, the scientific research that we do here at Heart Math today is really on 2 fronts now. We're looking at the energetic connectivity between all living systems on this planet and beyond. We're also looking at what's called social coherence. How do we create a new world? How do people come together in new ways? And what's being exchanged energetically that contributes to social coherence? Now, what you're referring to is the fact that the heart is an electrical organ producing by far the strongest source of bioelectricity in our bodies. It's strong enough that it produces an electromagnetic field that surrounds us in 360 degrees. It extends beyond the skin and goes out into space about 3 feet. Now, this is an electromagnetic field measured with very traditional, scientific measurement equipment, magnetometers in this case. So we all produce this field, and this field is constantly changing and fluctuating. In other words, the frequencies in the field are always changing. What we found is that one of the prime modulators of changes in this field are our emotions, what we're feeling. So if we're feeling frustrated and angry and upset, we produce an incoherent field. It's called an incoherent spectra. Conversely, if we are feeling, sort of heart-related emotions, things like more care for people, just general kindness, a bit of patience standing in that long grocery store line, certainly more love and care and compassion, the field actually changes. We are broadcasting a different information from that field, out into space. Now, fields relate to one another. My field's relating to the field of another. Yours is as well. The field of the heart is related to the little field produced by the brain. There's all these fields happening all the time, and we are exchanging information in unseen ways, energetically, constantly. Where this gets really interesting to me is the fact that we're just looking at a very measurable electromagnetic field. That's just one kind of field. What about fields that relate more to quantum physics? In quantum physics, one of the things that happens is you begin to remove the traditional barriers of time and space. And so then what's going on with these fields? What kind of field is being produced by the heart? Where does it go? What information does it send? What information does it receive? All of these are the amazing new scientific endeavors that scientists like heart math scientists and others around the world are beginning to decode more. So a very interesting, exciting time. I think the punchline to that is we are all energetically connected. We are all exchanging information. Every living system, not just people, but the earth itself, everything on the planet is energetically connected.
That takes us back to shamanism, really, and it's only 50, 60,000 years old, and that's where it dances. You know, I saw a documentary put out by NASA not too long ago that just made the lights come on for me, and they were saying that every place the electromagnetic field of the Earth, which is much like our electromagnetic field, and that of the Sun cross, it creates what they called X points, and they found that those X points are actually shortened distances between time and space, just like wormholes, and that must be the way that we're interconnected and communicating at all times, isn't it?
That's fascinating. I was not aware of that study or that information from NASA, but there's going to be lots of interesting, cool surprises coming up for us as we begin to understand ourselves, our world, and our universe better. And the field information is just one way of looking at it, but it's also an important question to ask. If we have this field, we're producing this field from our hearts. It's changing all the time depending upon what we are feeling. Now, we are imprinting a larger field with our field. It's the field that we're in our environment. You know, wherever we are right now today, there's a localized environment that we're in. But if we begin to then remove the boundaries of time and space, we're imprinting the field in a much larger context. And we're imprinting the field of consciousness itself. So what that brings up for me is a question that I ask myself several times a day as I go through the ups and downs of my day is, what am I feeding the field? What am I putting into that field? Because to me, how we create our own reality is through the reflection that comes back from what we put into the field of consciousness. So depending upon what I'm feeding it, that's what I'm going to get back. Not necessarily in the moment, but over time I begin to create the life that's mine by what I imprint that field with. So I ask the question a lot of times during the day, what am I feeding the field right now?
Kind of gives karma a whole new meaning, doesn't it?
Yeah, it sure does.
So how can a person start to access the intelligence of the heart? I mean, we've been taught to be pretty mind-centered.
Well, there's certain tools and techniques within the heart math system that people can learn about. You can find out about that on the website, heartmath.com. That's training programs, coaching programs, lots of things that we offer people, really designed to help them connect with something they already have, which is the power and intelligence of the heart. And we do it in some really good, very effective ways, very mainstream ways. I mean, what many people don't realize about heart math is we have crossed that bridge where we train in mainstream organizations, Fortune 100 companies, large healthcare institutions, police forces, even the U.S. military. One thing that I like to mention to people is like it really can grow into mainstream applications. And for example, we have partners in other parts of the world. Our partners in the Netherlands are training 40,000 Dutch police officers in basic heart math techniques. The entire Dutch police force.
Nice.
So that's showing the world's changing. So what people can do, basically, is you can learn the system like heart math and, again, get information from the website. But what I would say is that you can learn to just begin to put out more kindness, care, and compassion. That's one of the things that you can do that's going to open the door to your own heart more. Now, that's in the air as well. People are trying. People are trying to be a bit more understanding, a bit more patient, a bit more kind. But then they're confronted with so many things in life that are disconcerting. They begin to rob us of that, and then we find ourselves in feeling worried, concerned, despair, hopelessness. Those kind of feelings can be prevalent as well. But the best way to open our hearts and to access heart intelligence is just to do things like appreciate more. Look for things to appreciate. Appreciate the good things in your life. Take it beyond the gratitude journals that we've all done in the workshops we've been to. Make it into something that's an ongoing, practical, but simple but powerful practice of appreciation and putting out appreciation, not just waiting for life to conform to the way we want it to be and then appreciating it, but actually generating it in an ongoing way. Another one that's real important right now is patience. The speed of change is causing us to want everything to happen now. We want everything to be immediate. We live in a world where we get information immediately. If our phone doesn't work for some reason, it causes impatience. But it goes beyond that. We want change in ourselves, we want change in the world, and we want it now. And so sometimes we just don't allow things to play out enough. And that impatience is the opposite of what the heart's about. The heart's about finding a proper flow and timing with things and with change. So learn to try to be more patient about yourself, about your own growth, allowing things to unfold in a very natural way, and about the changes you want to see in the world. Feed them love, care, and kindness, and try to reduce some of the impatience. So what I'm doing now is just offering a few little tips. There's a lot more to heart than that, but if people would just do those two things, actively appreciate, go into the world and look for things to appreciate and generate it on a consistent, ongoing basis, and then try to find another degree of patience about yourself and about the changes you want to see in the world. Those two things combined would certainly open the door for new access to the magnificent intelligence of the heart.
It sounds like you're talking about being in the moment. Is heart pretty much moment-centered rather than linear?
It is. I think this being in the moment is there's an aspect to that. There's a lot of talk about being in the now, which is the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. A few years ago, I realized what I was trying to be was, really what I was an aspiring nowist. I was always living in the future. I don't live much in the past, but it was always getting too far ahead of myself. Being in one environment, but thinking about the next one I'm going to be in. And people would point that out to me, saying, you sometimes you just sort of disconnect from us. You're there, and we can ask you a question, and you answer it just as clear as a bell, but we know somehow you're not quite all there. It's because I have the ability to run two screens at once in my mind. I can be in the environment I'm in, but projecting off into other things, and that's not fair to other people. So being in the now is more like sort of like being conscious of what's going on in your environment at any given time. To me, there's an absolute being in the now or being in the moment where there is no past, there is no future, but I make that practical. It just means be connected to the people that you're with. Be aware of the environment that you're in. Whatever you're focusing on at that time, really stay focused on it. Those are the ways in which I look at being in the now, in the moment.
We have a few minutes left in this segment. The concept of coming from heart is an ancient one and is found in most spiritual practices. Why do you think we reverted back to being so mind-centered?
You want me to answer that now or when we get back from our little break?
Oh, we got a couple minutes. I think you can answer it now.
Well, what happened was back in the late 1500s, science began to show that the heart was a blood pump. And Dr. William Harvey was the first physician that actually published definitive work on that. People that have written about Harvey said that when he published it, basically what happened is heart lost its thought and thought lost its heart. And through the process of medical reductionism, heart was looked at as a blood pump, brain was looked at as where intelligence came from, and it just sort of shifted. And a lot of the wonderful things said about heart started being written off, and heart was starting to be recast as something sentimental and weak. But what I find interesting is in the middle of that, heart never really got lost. I'd like everyone listening right now to point to yourself. And where do you point? You put your finger on your heart. So we never lost the natural, innate, intuitive understanding that something core to who we are as people was in the heart, even though through the process of medical reductionism, heart was looked at as only a pump. We knew all along. The ancients knew it. You mentioned that. This goes back a long, long time. We've still kept that belief inside ourselves no matter how fast the world has been going. We know that there's something there. We know there's something valuable. And what's happening now is it's re-emerging in a new way. And it's important right now for that to happen as we go through this transitional period that we're all living in.
If we can reconnect with our heart, it's really the only way to reconnect with each other, isn't it?
It's where the connection comes from, isn't it? When we really connect, when we sit back and think about, the people we love and care about, the connection's a heart connection. We think about these cool conversations we have sometimes with people we never even know or know anything about them. It'd just be an exchange that we have in a restaurant, an airport, someplace. It doesn't matter. And there's a connection. We feel that. And it's visceral. It goes past knowing all about someone's background. It's just a resonance we have with them. And that's heart-to-heart communication. It's how we connect. And the emergence of heart intelligence in society will be the way in which we reconnect this world in a more dynamic and co-creative, proactive manner. In the book Heart Intelligence that I contributed to, some of the chapters that I wrote, one of those was on social coherence, about that new connection that's happening heart-to-heart with people around the world, and the movements that are forming that are not necessarily overtly heart-based, but you can see that they're born from the heart.
We'll have to pick up on social coherence on the other side of this commercial break. Howard and I will be back shortly, so don't leave us now. This is The Science of Magic, thescienceofmagic.net, your resource to altruistic professionals of science and the esoteric, working to create common ground for the betterment of our world. We're brought to you daily by the leader in paranormal, spirituality, and alternative health programming, the X-Zone Broadcast Network, xzbn.net.
Gwilda Wiyaka's latest book, The Science of Magic, Book of Mysteries, Volume 1, is the first book in a series based on her writings that open every episode of the Science of Magic radio show. Drawing on the subject matter of each guest, and armed with over 40 years' experience in shamanism, 35 years in alternative health, and degrees in psychology and religious studies, Gwilda introduces relevant and leading-edge information that supports spiritual evolution and personal empowerment. Rich with wisdom and inspirational quotes packaged in digestible segments, this is a book that will pull you from cover to cover. It will also serve as a daily inspirational reading for years to come. The Science of Magic Book of Mysteries, Volume 1 is available at our website, tsompublications.com, amazon.com, and wherever fine books are sold.
Welcome back. This is The Science of Magic, bringing together gifted people of service to the world. I'm your host, Gwilda Wiyaka, and one of those gifted people of service is our guest this hour. He's the co-author of The Heart Math Solution, Howard Martin. Howard, what is the Global Coherence Initiative?
It's a part of our nonprofit, the Heart Math Institute. We started about 8 years ago. It is a project we put together to unite people all around the world in heart-focused care and intention, to really help shift how the world functions from all the discord and problems that we see to a world that operates more with more harmony and enduring peace, those kind of qualities. Now, there are thousands of groups doing something similar, and we applaud every single one of them for their contribution. But we wanted to do our part in that way. We do lots of mainstream work. We've got a whole complete system. We touch the lives of millions of people around the world in meaningful ways. But we wanted to work at it from the consciousness level as well, because that's what started Heart Math in the first place. And we put this together to give people an opportunity, regardless of their belief systems, to come together heart to heart and use the power of the heart through their heart-focused intentions to really imprint the field of consciousness in ways that could filter down into society and how the world functions. So that's what we did. And so there's members from over 125 countries. You can go to the heartmath.org website, click on the link for the Global Coherence Initiative, and you can join. There's no cost to that. And you can become part of this amazing project. Now, what we also did is, because it's Heart Math, we brought science to the party. Our researchers developed very sophisticated technology in consort with other scientists that can measure subtle changes in the Earth's energetic fields. You alluded to those earlier in our conversation. Those fields would be the geomagnetic field and the ionosphere. These fields are protective layers around the Earth, think about them like energetic ecology. They protect us from incoming space weather. Without them, there would be no life as we know it here, just be a rock. And these fields are constantly changing. The solar radiation changes the fields, things like that. They're constantly fluctuating. And science knows a lot now about the effect these fields are having on us as people. There's a direct connection between human health and behavior, between changes occurring in the ionosphere and geomagnetic fields and us as a global society collectively and individually. So we're placing global coherence monitoring sites around the world, and that information is being fed back to our research labs here in Northern California. The data is being analyzed, and we're using it for several reasons. One, we are looking at the academic understanding of the fields themselves, so we can contribute to the academic literature. Two, we're looking at the effects the fields are having on us. So we're mapping out more of that, seeing the global effects that changes in these fields are having on us as people. And thirdly, we are testing a very cool hypothesis that we are also impacting the fields, that mass human emotion, whether positive or not positive, is actually imprinting these fields, impacting these fields in measurable ways. And so to do that, we are placing the sites, as I mentioned, around the world. There's one in Northern California. There's one in Northern Canada. There's another site in Lithuania. The fourth site is in Saudi Arabia. There's a site in New Zealand, a site in South Africa, and our head of research, Dr. Roland McCready, is in the country of Colombia right now, looking at site locations for another site. So we're putting this network together, and something that's amazing. And this is something normally a university or a government would do, but we're doing it ourselves. So we are really building a magnificent ground-based system to study these fields, the effects they have on us, and the effects we may be having on them. So you add that into the connectivity that we create through the meditations and things that we do with Global Coherence Initiative, add the scientific component, and that's what it is. It's a magnificent science-based project uniting people all around the world. Let's create a new world and different world that's more heart-centric, and let's do it together and add some science to it.
That's a beautiful thing. You know, it brings to mind to me that all the shamanic practices I studied believed that we were the stewards of the earth and that in our absence, things would go out of balance. And this kind of relates back to what you're saying is what we're putting out has an effect on the fields of the earth and the planets as well as them having an effect on us, doesn't it?
Well, we don't know that yet, but it's a hypothesis that I think could be, we have to prove it. It has to be proven to be true or not. And that's the way science needs to work. Now, there are some interesting and good friend people that are on our boards of the Global Coherence Initiative. Some of them are authors and speakers as well. Greg Braden, for example, and McTaggart. Those are all people that are associated with this. Another one is Jack Canfield, the author of all the Chicken Soup of the Soul books and an icon in the industry. And when he became a board member, he told me, he said, "I think this is the most important experiment in the history of the world." I said, "That's a pretty big statement, Jack. Why do you think that?" He said, "Because if this proved to be true, you'd be providing scientific evidence that all of our thoughts, our prayers, our meditations, our intentions, all of that really has a measurable effect." And I said, yeah, that would be pretty interesting. We do it anyway without having any scientific proof, but when you do have science to support an understanding, it adds to the power of belief. And so if that proved to be true, and we had evidence that what we're putting out is actually having a measurable impact, it would create the belief in all of these things that we do and that we do with our, with our hearts and with our consciousness. And I think that could be important. So it could be a big shift in how we understand ourselves in the world if that proved to be true. But it'll take years for us to go through the research protocols and process to reach an understanding of yes or no on that.
I love the thing you brought up about belief because, all your traditions to say if you don't believe it, you can't create it. So if we can create proof so that we can create belief, then we can create the very thing you're trying to do. Is that the logic there?
That was the exact, sort of psychological equation that you just laid out. That's exactly right. And I think that could be powerful. Again, the power of belief increases when we have something that satisfies our mind and allows our heart to unfold. And saying something when science says, and it becomes true, and then the power of belief is there, and off we go.
Off we
and
go.
Then belief has another level of potency and effectiveness that can create change.
What is social coherence, and how can we achieve it?
Social coherence is really the coming together in a cooperative spirit that will allow us to function differently and to solve the global problems that we face in new and different ways. It's emerging already. People's desire for it is getting stronger and stronger. There are many movements that are happening now, whether they're being born from, social cause or for other reasons. But people are coming together. They're suspending some of their judgments. They're opening up them to each other in a cooperative sense. as that happens, that's how we will draw in the facilitation and intuitive intelligence that we need to come up with solutions to problems that we face today that don't seem to have solutions right now. My belief is there's always a solution, and the solutions are right there in front of our faces, but often we just can't see them yet. Social coherence is a movement. It's about seeing the benefits of coming together and working together, of dissolving some of the separations that keep people from really experiencing each other and life in a whole new way. And it's showing up. One thing listeners can do is next time you're watching TV, look at advertising and look and see the values of the heart and people working together. It shows up now in a lot of television commercials. Suspend whether you think the product is good or not and look at what they're trying to say. What are they doing to try to sell their product? They're showing that, hey, people want the values of the heart. They want to be with each other. They want to have kindness and compassion. This is showing up in advertising all over the place now, and it's not an accident. An advertiser, a company advertising spends millions and millions of dollars determining what's going to work through focus groups and other ways that they measure. And so they're saying, well, people want this, so we'll associate it with their product. They want to feel more love and care. They want to feel connected to one another. So we'll associate with that with our product. And so the advertisers are spending money promoting their products with that kind of an imagery. And what that says to me, and I wrote about this in the Heart Intelligence book, is that shows that there's something going on that you can see outpicturing through something as day-to-day and practical as business. It's showing up everywhere.
We have about 3 minutes left. One thing that I've noticed since I started living in a heart-centered way is where in our normal mind approach to problem solving, it either is or it isn't. There's this answer or that answer, and they're polarized. When you get heart in there, it seems to bring about a third option. Why is that?
Well, again, it's that next bandwidth of intelligence. First of all, let me applaud you for your observation. Not everything in life is black and white, right? There's gradations, and there's nuance to all of that, and the heart allows us to have that sensitivity to see that. And I think it's because we are accessing, again, a different type of information, more awareness. So, the box in which we are perceiving gets wider when we approach life from the heart. And when the box gets wider, there's more things in it, and that means more options. It doesn't have to be always black and white, do this or don't do that. Sometimes it is that way. But the heart allows us to have that flexibility to, again, to see the angles and see things in a new light that allows us to differentiate our choices in a much more refined and mature way.
We have just a little bit. What is the single largest change that you've experienced in your life as a result of living this way?
Well, it's been going on a long time for me, so it'd be hard to singularize it, but I can just say this. The life that I have is one that I cannot appreciate enough. All the things that I have in my life and the position I'm in today and what I get to do, the organization I'm a part of, my relationships, my health, all that is way past anything I could have ever experienced. It so far exceeds expectation that it can't even be grasped, and I can't appreciate that enough. So I would say that the biggest change I would associate with the heart was that none of this would have happened if I had not approached life from the heart and followed my heart and really made that my priority in life. I think my life would have been very different. I don't know that it would have been bad or good, but I cannot imagine it could have ever been this if heart hadn't been at the forefront of everything that I did.
Howard, thank you so much for living from your heart and sharing it with us.
It's been a pleasure to be with you and all of your guests, and we wish everybody well and follow your heart and watch the magic unfold.
There you go. It is magic. Our guest this hour has been the co-author of The Heart Math Solution, a contributing author to Heart Intelligence, connecting with the intuitive guidance of the heart, Howard Martin. His website, heartmath.com. This has been The Science of Magic. Till next time, dear ones, may you be blessed with knowledge, comforted with love as you live from your heart.